Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me just be deliberately redundant for a quick second. INBIS and the INBIS project is, as you've heard repeatedly today, 10 years behind schedule and already billions and billions over budget. So I'd like to know, and by the way, this keeps me up at night because America's secrets are at risk the longer we don't do what we ought to do here. And the Russians and the Chinese, who can tune in to C-SPAN whenever they want to be assured that we're behind, will look at what we're doing and year after year after year get emboldened because we are so transparent about why and when we expect to have this completed. So, Mr. Overbaugh, when you look, as you have been doing since November when you came on board, at cost overruns, which ones are the most apparent to you?
Ranking Member Mfume, to me, the most alerting is the overall amount of money that we've spent so far writ large, the $2.4 billion, and not delivering the capabilities that we promised over time to the American people. There are many details within that. The failure to, as I mentioned earlier, to match up the operations and business side with the technical side. There are redundancies and inefficiencies in there, but I think that number overall, the 2.4 million, billion, is inexcusable, and one of the things that drives me and the team on a daily basis to fix the things in the past that we have not done well so that we can deliver for the American people.
Do you think your predecessor felt the same way, was driven the same way?
I won't speak to the intent or what was going on inside the minds or hearts of any of my predecessors. I know that the organization today sits ready and they are excited about delivering for the American people.
Well, and I understand it and I appreciate it, but you have to realize what it's like to sit here year after year after year after year and be told the same thing, that it's getting better, the organization understands, we've got the right path, we're going to be transparent. And in that process, contractor after contractor is billing the United States government for services that I assume are never fully completed, within a caveat saying we couldn't do this, we won't do this, or we need more money for that. That is very, very disturbing, and it's not your fault. I'm just giving you the history of how we got to this point and why it is so very disturbing to us. You've heard the term fat rats. Well, a lot of them making out with a lot of money and not providing the kind of service that they are being contracted for and paid for. And Mrs., if I could just ask you the same question, are there some identifiable cost overruns that repeatedly, year after year, GAO looks at, identifies, and points out?
Yes, in fact, our previous analysis showed that DCSA did not have a reliable cost estimate for INBIS. It was not accurate, it was not comprehensive, it was not credible, and it was not well documented. So we can't tell you where the problems were. It was across the entire estimate. It could not be relied upon for planning. Now they have taken important steps, including conducting an independent cost estimate to get a better handle on costs. So we're at a better place now. That estimate needs to be updated annually. And so I advise the subcommittee to stay on top of DCSA as we will to make sure that that is updated annually with actual costs. But they are better positioned now. Unfortunately, and if I can kind of veer off a little bit, earlier on in the program, I think one of the key shortcomings was a lack of oversight, right? So DCSA was really policing itself in its actions. No one broader in the department was taking a look at what DCSA was doing as INBIS was going off the rails. There were some steps put in place for INS, where Mr. Overbaugh is from, to be now the program sponsor and then even higher within the department to have milestone decision authority. There were some other mechanisms put in place, the requirements board, for example, that's supposed to meet quarterly, some other reporting requirements. Where we do still have concerns is some of these oversight mechanisms are great that they're in place, but we're not actually seeing them working as they're supposed to be working. So that requirements board that I just mentioned is supposed to meet quarterly. We think it met last Friday, but before then had only met in June, right? So maybe once a year. So it's good to put those mechanisms in place, but you have to exercise the oversight as well, too. So that's something that we'll be taking a look at as the program moves on, making sure that oversight is actually working.
And what would GAO immediately recommend be done as you look at where we are in this process, notwithstanding the things you just mentioned?
Right. I think we've been on record for years that you really can't plan effectively without having a reliable schedule for the INBIS program. Milestones have shifted for years. We're a decade. This is a decade-long program now. Costs have increased 100%. We still don't have a reliable schedule. So it's great that we're marrying up policy with milestones, but our recent analysis showed that almost half, 46% of milestones in the Trusted Workforce 2.0 strategy that are INBIS related have slipped over the past 9 months, 46% because of INBIS delays, right? So that's something that's got to be addressed right away. We have new recommendations kind of to target in on what needs to be done for a schedule. And it's great that Mr. Overbaugh is very focused on this. But this is something that we've been talking about for years. We talked about it at the last hearing as well. Without getting this in place, the program still is at risk of slippage going forward and then increased cost to the taxpayer.
And Mr. Overbaugh, I know you've been there since November, but do you have some semblance of a schedule, a sketch, an outline? Are you talking directly to GAO to figure out how and when that ought to be completed?
Ranking Member Mfume, the schedule has yet to be developed, and that's one of the great things that we've discovered through our partnership with GAO. And as a reminder, as we dig down into the milestones that the TWIG recently established, we will be producing that schedule. That's the document that I hope to bring back to this body in the March and April timeframe. I do want to push back on one thing that you said earlier. You mentioned that it's not my fault. I just want to give you the confidence, sir. As I'm acting director, everything that this organization does or fails to do is now my responsibility. We do take on the fact that the previous failures are now our responsibility. And we own them, and that's part of the cultural change that we're trying to instantiate at DCSA.
Well, that's good to know and it's good to hear, but it really wasn't your fault because you were not there. But I commend you for owning them. So are you saying to the chairman and members of the committee that by late March or early April, this schedule will be in place and we can call another hearing and talk about it?
What our team is attempting to produce by March, April timeframe is a business operationalization synchronization schedule. That is our attempt to get at the critical paths and the risks that GAO has rightly pointed out that we continue to lack. Once we have that established, I'm happy to bring that product back. We have as a goal to establish that by the March and April timeframe.
And just one other question. Are you interacting with GAO to make sure what you produce is exactly what they have identified?
We will be moving forward. I had the opportunity to meet Ms. Sis the other day in preparation for this hearing, and we agreed that we would interact quarterly on a quarterly basis moving forward, and we look forward to them helping us provide an objective look at our organization as we try and implement the change.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll move to the distinguished gentleman from Tennessee. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things I like about your chairmanship and your relationship with our ranking member, I always dig his line of questioning, and sometimes, like myself, it takes me a little longer than 5 minutes, and I appreciate you allowing us to do that.
Gentleman is recognized, and the gentleman does understand from his experience